I started waking up groggy, not tired, drugged. That's the only way I can describe what began happening 3 months ago. The strange fog that settled over my evenings wasn't natural tiredness from long days at the engineering firm. This was something heavier, artificial, clinging to me like a second skin. I'd wake with my mouth dry and thoughts scattered like broken glass. Emily had explanations for everything. "You're stressed from the Peterson project," she'd say, running fingers through my hair with practiced concern. "Middle age catching up. Maybe see doctor. Henry about your sleep issues." But there was something in her tone. Too helpful, too concerned, like a salesman overselling a rusted car. The kind that makes your gut twist. Small inconsistencies started appearing. My coffee mug in the dishwasher when I'd left it on the counter. Waking up facing the window when I always slept toward Emily. The guest room door closed when I'd left it open. "You're imagining things," Emily would laugh. "You were half asleep. People don't remember everything when they're exhausted." She was right about exhaustion. But not the kind from 60-hour weeks. This was bone-deep fatigue of someone fighting a war he didn't know he was in. The worst part wasn't the grogginess, it was the doubt. 8 years of marriage teaches you to trust your partner's reality, especially when your mind operates through thick syrup. Emily's explanations made surface sense. Work stress, getting older, sleep apnea requiring medical intervention and understanding wives. But my instincts screamed something different. The kind of wrong that settles in your gut like a swallowed stone. I began paying closer attention, fighting through pharmaceutical haze that descended every evening around 9. Emily would bring tea, a bedtime routine she'd started months ago, claiming chamomile would help my sleep troubles. She'd watch me drink it with nurse-like attentiveness. "Drink it while it's warm," she'd say, settling beside me. "It works better that way." The tea tasted fine, slightly bitter, but chamomile always was. Emily would curl up afterward, more affectionate than she'd been in months, more physical, asking about my day with interest that felt simultaneously genuine and calculating. But there was distance in her eyes, like performing intimacy rather than feeling it. 3 weeks ago, I started noticing sounds, soft creaks after I'd drifted off. The whisper of the back door opening, so quiet I almost convinced myself it was the house settling. Emily's breathing beside me, too controlled for deep sleep. When I'd stir, she'd immediately respond with sleepy reassurances. "Just the neighbors, honey." But her voice was too alert for someone unconscious moments before. The breaking point came Tuesday night. I woke around 2 with familiar pharmaceutical fog, but something had jarred me awake. The house felt different. Occupied in ways that had nothing to do with Emily sleeping beside me. Emily's breathing was artificial, forced rhythm people use when pretending to sleep. In the distance, the soft click of a door closing. Not our front door, something deeper. The guest room. The next morning, Emily was making pancakes and humming, unusually cheerful for someone who claimed poor sleep because of my tossing and turning. The guest room bed was unmade, sheets tangled. When I mentioned it, Emily's explanation came too quickly. "I couldn't sleep, so I moved there around midnight. You were snoring loudly." Except I'd never been a snorer, and Emily had never mentioned it in 8 years. That afternoon, I made a decision that would change everything. Instead of confronting Emily with half-formed suspicions, I chose the methodical approach of a man who solved problems with evidence rather than emotion. I researched hidden camera systems online, studying specifications with the same attention I'd use for structural engineering projects. Wireless models with night vision, motion-activated recording, cameras small enough to hide but sophisticated enough to capture everything. My house's layout spread across my mind like I was planning a heist. The hallway to the guest room, the kitchen where Emily prepared my tea, the back door that seemed to open on its own during my chemically induced sleep. The first camera arrived Friday via express delivery. no bigger than a thumb drive, capable of high-definition recording for 8 hours. I held it like a weapon, feeling its weight and potential. The installation of cameras revealed things about my house I'd never noticed in 5 years. Corners where shadows concealed tiny lenses, angles providing perfect sightlines down hallways, details only someone thinking like an investigator would recognize. The first camera went behind the living room bookshelf, positioned to capture the kitchen where Emily prepared evening tea. The second found home in a fake plant near the back door, motion-activated, infrared-capable, viewing both the door and hallway to our bedroom. The third was most crucial, concealed in guest room crown molding, invisible from the bed but perfectly positioned to record everything. Each placement was deliberate, calculated for maximum evidence while remaining invisible. I found cold satisfaction in the technical aspects, methodical pleasure like designing load-bearing structures. But this wasn't engineering. This was war. During installation, I discovered details confirming my suspicions. Fresh scratches around the back door lock, barely visible unless you knew to look. Unfamiliar footprints in the garden, size 11 boots when I wore 10 and Emily wore 7. Guest room sheets smelled faintly of cologne I didn't recognize, expensive and aggressive. Someone had been in my house, using my guest room, moving through my home while I lay unconscious. Emily returned from book club with wine on her breath and rehearsed stories about other wives. She was more attentive than usual, asking about my day with interest that now seemed calculating. "You look tired," she observed, studying my face like a nurse assessing a patient. "Maybe try something stronger for sleep issues. I read about melatonin that might help." Every suggestion about sleep, every comment about tiredness, every offer felt like manipulation disguised as care. "Maybe," I agreed, accepting chamomile tea. "Whatever you think is best." But this time, I was ready. The tea tasted the same, slightly bitter, herbal, with lingering aftertaste. I drank normally while palming the small plastic bag I'd prepared. When Emily went to the bathroom, I quickly poured half the tea into the bag and sealed it, evidence for later testing. The grogginess hit around 10:30, right on schedule. Instead of fighting or surrendering completely, I practiced controlled breathing techniques I'd researched. Muscle relaxation exercises simulating deep sleep while maintaining awareness. Harder than expected. Drugs made concentration difficult, but determination kept me focused. Emily checked on me twice before midnight, testing responsiveness with gentle touches and whispered questions. Each time I maintained steady breathing while tracking her movements through barely opened eyelids. She studied me like a scientist observing an experiment, checking pulse and pupil dilation with practiced efficiency. This wasn't her first time drugging someone. Around midnight, I heard the soft click of the back door unlocking. My heart hammered, but I kept breathing controlled. Footsteps moved with practiced familiarity. Someone who'd made this journey before, knowing which floorboards creaked. Emily's breathing changed, becoming alert. She whispered something I couldn't make out, then slipped from bed with fluid movement. Through thin eyelash barriers, I watched her creep through our bedroom like a stranger, checking my breathing before padding toward the hallway. In walked Jake Morrison, Emily's ex-boyfriend from college, the same arrogant piece of work she'd sworn she'd cut ties with when we got engaged. Older now, softer around the middle, but still carrying cocky confidence. They moved through my house like they owned it, whispering in the kitchen like conspirators. I caught fragments, how he'll be out for hours, how they needed to be more careful about dosage, how Jake thought they should just tell him and get it over with, while Emily insisted on maintaining the arrangement. The arrangement. Like my marriage was a business deal with terms I'd never agreed to. They disappeared into the guest room with casual intimacy. The sounds that followed, muffled laughter, creaking bed springs, Emily's voice pitched in ways I hadn't heard in months, cut through pharmaceutical haze like broken glass. But instead of rage, I felt something colder. clarity. This wasn't isolated incident or momentary weakness. This was systematic betrayal, carefully planned and executed with precision. I lay listening to my wife betray me 15 feet away and began planning her destruction with methodical patience of an engineer designing something built to last forever. The cameras were recording everything. The tea sample was sealed and ready for testing. Emily and Jake had provided enough evidence to end not just my marriage, but any chance Emily had of walking away with dignity or financial compensation. Tomorrow night would be their last performance. The morning routine had become theater, and I was ready for opening night. Emily brought coffee with the same concerned smile, asking about my sleep and suggesting new melatonin supplements from the pharmacy. "Doctor, Henry says they're more effective than chamomile," she explained, setting the bottle beside my cup like administering medication. "Maybe we should try a stronger approach." I accepted the bottle with appropriate gratitude, even asking her to remind me to take one before bed. The cruel irony wasn't lost, asking my wife to help me sleep while she'd been drugging me for months. The day crawled with agonizing slowness. Every hour brought me closer to the confrontation I'd planned for days. Cameras were charged, positioned perfectly, ready to capture everything. The tea sample waited in my desk drawer for laboratory confirmation. Emily spent the day unusually attentive, making my favorite lunch, asking about work with genuine-seeming interest, suggesting weekend getaways to reconnect. The performance was flawless, and if I hadn't known better, I might have been touched. But I was listening differently now. Every suggestion about relaxation felt like manipulation. Every touch felt calculated. Every concerned glance felt like a scientist checking her lab rat. Evening arrived with inevitable weight. Emily prepared chamomile tea with extra care, steeping longer and adding honey without being asked. She watched me drink with focused attention, making casual conversation while tracking every sip. "Drink it all," she encouraged when I paused. "It works better when you finish the whole cup." I drained the mug completely, complimenting the taste. The bitter aftertaste was stronger. She'd increased the dosage, probably at Jake's suggestion. The grogginess hit harder and faster. Emily helped me to bed with tender concern, tucking me in and kissing my forehead with lips that tasted like lies. "Sleep well, honey," she whispered, stroking my hair. "Sweet dreams." I maintained controlled breathing, letting my body relax while keeping my mind alert. The drugs made it difficult, but determination provided clarity no pharmaceutical could cloud. Emily changed into a black dress that hugged her figure, getting dressed for a date in her own house while her husband lay drugged in their marriage bed. She checked my breathing one final time, testing responsiveness with gentle shakes. Satisfied I was unconscious, she padded toward the back door. Jake arrived exactly at midnight, moving with confidence. They met in the kitchen with an embrace speaking of months of familiarity, whispering endearments like a couple reuniting after work. "He's completely out," Emily reported. "I increased the dosage like you suggested." "Good," Jake murmured. "Maybe it's time we stopped playing games and told him the truth." "Not yet," Emily insisted. "I need more time to document his mental instability, the sleep issues, paranoia, memory problems. It'll work in my favor during divorce. I can claim emotional abuse, maybe danger. Get a restraining order. Take half of everything." They discussed my destruction like planning a vacation, casual and thorough and without conscience. Emily described her strategy for portraying me as unstable. Jake worried about legal implications of drugging someone, but Emily dismissed concerns with chilling pragmatism. They moved to the guest room with practiced familiarity. The sounds that followed were worse than imagined, not just physical betrayal, but mocking commentary about my trusting nature, speculation about maintaining deception, Emily's cold calculation about maximizing divorce settlement. I lay listening to my wife plan my destruction while f***ing her ex-boyfriend and felt something crystallize into pure, focused hatred. But hatred without strategy is just noise. I waited until they were finished, relaxed and vulnerable. Then I sat up with deliberate slowness, letting my feet touch the floor with careful precision. The walk to the guest room felt like a funeral procession. I opened the door without knocking, stepping inside with controlled calm. Jake saw me first, satisfied expression dissolving into panic. He scrambled for clothes, stammering apologies that fell on deaf ears. "What the f***? How are you?" "Unconscious?" I completed calmly. "Like I have been every night for 3 months while you've been f***ing my wife in my house." Emily's reaction revealed her character. Not guilt or shame, but rapid calculation of how to regain narrative control. She tried denial first. "This isn't what it looks like. We were just talking. In the guest room. At midnight. While I was drugged with whatever you've been putting in my tea." Her expression shifted to justification. "You've been so distant, so cold. I needed someone who understood. Someone who could help you drug your husband and plan his financial destruction." That stopped her. Jake was pulling on pants with shaking hands. Emily's face cycled through expressions: shock, calculation, desperate bargaining. "We can work through this. Marriage counseling, fresh start. I'll end things with Jake." I walked to Jake with calm purpose. He was bigger, younger, probably stronger, but also naked, terrified and guilty as hell. I grabbed his arm and dragged him toward the back door with steady strength. "You can't just," Emily screamed, "remove an intruder from my house? Defend my home against someone breaking in for months?" I asked. I pushed Jake through the door into the yard, watching him stumble naked across grass. "Get off my property. If I see you again, I'll call police. Next time you want to f*** someone else's wife, don't do it while she's drugging her husband. That's felony assault." He ran naked into the night. Emily required surgical precision. She'd wrapped herself in a sheet, alternating between threats and bargaining. "You're making a huge mistake. I'll tell everyone you threw me out. I'll claim abuse, get a restraining order." "Will you?" I pulled my phone, showing her the live feed from the guest room camera. "After they see videos of you drugging me and f***ing Jake? After lab results on T samples I've been saving? After your voice is recorded planning my destruction?" Color drained from her face. "Those recordings are illegal," she stammered. "This is my house. I have every right to install security cameras on my property, especially when I suspect criminal activity." I pulled out suitcases from our closet, the same ones from our honeymoon. "Pack what you need. Everything else we'll sort through lawyers." "You can't throw me out," she pleaded. "It's not your house. The deed is in my name, bought with money I earned before we met." She packed with shaking hands. When she tried to take jewelry I'd given her, I stopped her. "Those stay. Collect personal belongings through your lawyer." At the front door, wrapped in a coat over her nightgown, Emily made her last stand. 8 years of marriage, and you're throwing it away over one mistake," she muttered. "One mistake?" This was months of systematic betrayal. Drugging me, manipulating me, planning my destruction. That's not a mistake. That's who you are. She left crying threats and promises. I watched her taillights disappear, then locked the door. The house felt different immediately. Lighter. Cleaner. For the first time in months, I fell asleep naturally and woke 8 hours later with a clear head and peace I'd forgotten was possible. 6 months later, I wake naturally at 6:30. No alarm needed, no grogginess clouding my thoughts. Morning sun streams through bedroom windows I now keep open, no longer afraid of what might enter while I sleep. The immediate aftermath was chaotic, but satisfying. Emily's furious parents arrived the next afternoon, prepared to confront me for humiliating their daughter. They came loaded for battle, ready to defend their precious child. They left 20 minutes later, stammering apologies and refusing eye contact. Video evidence had that effect. Hard to argue with high-definition footage of your daughter systematically drugging her husband while conducting an affair. Even harder when audio included her voice planning his psychological manipulation. "We had no idea," her mother whispered as they retreated. "Emily told us you were having mental health issues, becoming paranoid and controlling." "Maybe ask yourselves where she learned to lie so convincingly," I'd replied. Divorce proceedings were swift and decisive. Emily's shark lawyer advised immediate capitulation once presented with evidence. Video documentation of adultery was damaging enough, but systematic spousal drugging crossed into criminal territory no family court judge would ignore. Emily's attempts to claim half of everything were complicated by inconvenient facts. The house was mine, purchased before marriage with saved money. Cars were in my name. Even joint savings was funded primarily by my engineering salary, while Emily's part-time bookkeeping contributed maybe 20%. She walked away with personal belongings, half the joint savings, and shattered pride. No alimony. Adultery clauses are wonderful when properly documented. No claim to house or retirement accounts. Just consequences. The social fallout was swift and merciless. Emily's affair became public knowledge when Jake's wife discovered everything. Linda Morrison was less forgiving. She took Jake for everything and made sure everyone knew why their marriage ended. Emily lost her part-time job when word reached her boss. She moved back with her parents, a 40-year-old woman reduced to her childhood bedroom because elaborate schemes had collapsed spectacularly. But real victory wasn't Emily's downfall. It was recovering my own mind and autonomy. The adjustment period of sleeping naturally again, trusting my own perceptions, no longer questioning memories or second-guessing instincts. Those first weeks were harder than expected. My body had become dependent on Emily's drugs, and withdrawal brought challenges, insomnia, anxiety, crushing doubt about whether I'd done the right thing. Then I'd remember Emily's voice discussing my destruction with casual cruelty, and doubts would evaporate. I've begun dating again, cautiously, but without paranoia that might have consumed a weaker man. Sarah from the coffee shop, a divorcee with her own betrayal experiences. We move slowly, building trust through demonstrated actions rather than pretty words. Trust, but verify, she says with a smile, holding hard-won wisdom. Reagan was talking about nuclear treaties, but it works for relationships too. I've learned to value my own perception above others' reassurances, to trust my gut even when my heart wants to believe otherwise. The most loving thing you can sometimes do is refuse to enable destructive behavior, even when that someone is your wife. Emily, I heard through mutual friends, struggled with unemployment and isolation before finding work at a strip mall tax preparation chain. Her attempts to portray herself as victim of an abusive marriage fell flat when evidence of systematic deception became public. I feel no satisfaction in her struggles, just quiet acknowledgement that actions have consequences, even for people who believe they're clever enough to avoid them. The house that was once a prison has become a sanctuary. I no longer check door locks obsessively or test drinks for foreign substances. The guest room has been converted into a home office, space for building something new rather than hiding something shameful. The back door has a different lock now, though I rarely think about that detail. The kitchen where Emily prepared drugged tea has been remodeled, symbolic fresh start serving practical purposes too. My morning routine belongs to me again. Coffee made to exact preferences, news checked at my own pace, schedule planned according to my priorities. I step into each day with complete confidence in my own perceptions. This morning, like every morning for 6 months, I stand in my kitchen holding coffee I made myself, looking out at a garden where no unwanted footprints disturb the soil. I used to think insomnia was my enemy. Now I know the real enemy was the sleep I didn't choose, and the woman who chose it for me. These days, I sleep like a baby and wake up like a king. And so, we've reached the end of today's story. Was it what you expected, or did it take a twist you didn't see coming? I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below, and let's get a conversation going. If this story kept you hooked, make sure to hit that like button. And if you're new here or just haven't subscribed yet, now's the perfect time to join our community. I bring you fresh, captivating stories every day, so click that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.